Hello, DP community, and welcome to a very different episode of Inner Space. Today we'll be exploring a virtual city right here on planet Earth. I am not a gamer by any stretch, but some 20 years ago I was semi-active on SimCity 3000. That edition changed everything because it introduced the Building Architect tool. For the first time in the game's development, the player community could create and share custom buildings for the game. It was a vibrant community, and I too contributed some assets for SimCity. This summer I needed a creative diversion, something I could do on my laptop. While researching what became of SimCity, I discovered its modern successor, Cities Skylines, a product by Colossal Order and Paradox Interactive that builds on everything that made SimCity so immersive and fun to play. So over the course of, 2 weeks, I acquainted myself with the software and its community and set out to build my very first Cities Skylines world. Good or bad, everyone's going to see it today. I'm fairly certain I possess zero city planning and engineering skills, but let's try to enjoy it nonetheless. Groveland Heights is a completely fictional city, so if any of the street configurations or areas seem familiar to you, it's pure coincidence. I never even lived in a place called Groveland Heights, but I do remember a neighborhood street named Groveland. The roadmap for this episode begins with some basic orientation to Cities Skylines. Next, I'll take you on a guided tour of the various districts that make up the city, and I think it will be both fun and fitting if I honored my patrons today by giving them their own streets. They were wonderfully patient over the summer while I was bogged down on a different project. Now, for the rest of the DP community, I included a Star Trek reference somewhere in the city, and I'd like you to try and spot it during today's activities. I'll pin the first comment that correctly identifies that Star Trek Easter egg. The episode will conclude with a random cinematic tour of Groveland Heights so that each of you can immerse yourself in this world while you discover the various details and cool animations that bring the simulation to life. So, with that out of the way, let's get started. Alright, a game begins by choosing a land plot. There are various terrains and climates, and I believe this one is called Foggy Hills. I chose this primarily because I wanted waterfront communities, and you can see we have this significant river. In hindsight, I wouldn't choose it again because the terrain isn't very smooth, making it more challenging to plop down buildings and assets. This side isn't too bad, but the western half is basically a massive uneven hill. I had to spend a lot of money on landscaping to make this suitable for various assets. Your first land plot comes with a single connection to the world, this incoming highway connection, from which you build your eventual road network. The game progresses as a series of population milestones. Each milestone unlocks new buildings, zoning, services, and other assets that help the city to flourish and come to life. The first population milestone was Little Hamlet with 440 residents. Worthy Village with a population of 900. I reached Tiny Town status with 1,400 residents. Boomtown with 2,400 residents. Busy Town required a population of 5,000. And then Big Town at 7,500. This was really my immediate pursuit, reaching this milestone, because I wanted tall buildings for a modern city look. But tall buildings require high-density zoning, and the high-density zones don't come into play until this level. So it was at this point that I felt the city was really beginning. You see here, this side of the river. Originally, I was not going to develop this part. It's just a sliver of land when you consider the plot boundary right here. But this would eventually become Riverton District as a way to boost the city's overall population. And you can see that Riverton actually began life as one of my garbage dumps. The other obvious pattern here is that I left this region kind of remote. My plan was to develop here in the central region, do a little development across the bridge in Riverton, And then later on, this would be a good spot to lay down an airport, given its higher elevation. Alright, we're here at the origin of the city with its world highway connection. You know, I thought I was being clever, extending this thruway as an express tunnel to the upper districts, but you can see clearly that the bulk of northbound traffic is not using the tunnel. The Outlanders are using the off-ramp. They are trying to access the downtown streets or the industrial section to the left. This is an overhead view of the downtown district. There is very little housing here. It is mostly government buildings, hotels, offices, and a mixture of low density and high density commercial. Cloverdale was really my first residential development and the site of the city's first elementary school. The district was so named because of the shape of its streets. Cloverdale doesn't have a traditional park asset, but it does have extensive walking paths, effectively making the entire district a park. Immediately north is Glendale District. Glendale has the city's largest park and one of its two high schools, that L-shaped building. If I were living in Groveland Heights, I think I'd want to live here in Glendale. It's right across the avenue from the Expo Center and Shopping Plaza with easy access to the Riverton Bridge. Riverton is a lot nicer now without the landfills and traditional factories. Its industrial zone is now agriculture, which isn't as dirty, but Riverton continues to be the city's solution for trash, with its incinerator plant there on the right. People come to Riverton on the weekends for horseback riding and fishing tours. North Bend District used to be the site of the city's oil power plant. That has since been removed, but North Bend retains a small section of light industry. There is very little pollution here and much healthier trees. On the opposite side of the city artery is Middleborough. IQs are high here. Middleborough is the location of the City University and Public Library. I had great fun building that elevated pedestrian walk. Those things are real, though I've never seen one quite this large. Uptown District is the city's cultural center. There's lots of housing here and plenty to do. In addition to key government buildings like City Hall, police headquarters, and a general hospital, Uptown District has a modern art museum, theater, and cinema. Residents can take a quick metro ride to Middleborough if they want to swim or use the gym. Nestled in the northwest corner is Hillsdale District. Were it not for the approaching flights, Hillsdale would easily be the quietest place in Groveland Heights. Hillsdale recently replaced its traditional elementary school with the city's first and only community school. Hillsdale was so named for being, well, hilly. It's like a more rural version of San Francisco. We are now approaching the airport located in Madison Hill District. This is the requisite airport neighborhood. Isn't there always an unfortunate community situated right by the airport? Groveland Heights has a 3-terminal regional airport. Surprisingly, City Skylines doesn't have parking structures. Now, you can't have an airport without parking, so I was pleased to learn, with the help of the community, that it's easy to build one using the game's asset editor. So yeah, that's a DP parking lot there. When I was able to acquire the Science Center and transition to solar power plants, I thought it made sense to group them into a science park district. The smaller building is a research center. The Industrial Park District used to be several blocks of pure, dirty industry. Later, I had the means to specialize in forest industry, which cut down on the pollution footprint. When the industry demand dropped, I rezoned nearly half the district for office space, light commercial, and residential. So people actually live here now. The last residential district is West End, which runs alongside the elevated expressway. West End has the rival high school. Growing up, I never lived in an area that didn't have at least 2 rival high schools. Whenever I look at West End, I can't help but imagine it's the city's low-income district. Okay, so that wraps the guided district tour. Before the street dedications and closing cinematics, let me draw your attention to some interesting animation details in city skylines. Some are cool, some are weird. Vehicles driving on dirt roads kick up dust. Emergency vehicles not only have flashing lights, but those lights reflect off the surrounding buildings. When residents die, a hearse or van comes to pick up the body. Vehicles sometimes pass through one another. Airplanes turn too quickly after taking off. And pedestrians walk way too fast in this game.